Ball Smasher says, about believing thoughts. Should one not believe any thought, whatever it says? You can get into like a kind of war with thoughts too, and I don't recommend that. So I don't recommend like arguing with your own thoughts. And I will just say thoughts, if you're approaching it as a practice, if you're approaching thought as a practice of inquiry, meditation, unbound consciousness, then the position is a thought has no truth value. Not that it's wrong, not that it's like inherently wrong. It just doesn't have a truth value. It's just a thought appearing, right? If your eyes are closed, you're sitting still, there's no distractions, you don't need thoughts. So the thought that's talking about something that happened 10 days ago, or it's going to happen later, or self-talk and all that, you don't need any of it, right? It's clear that you don't need it. So from there, you can recognize any one thought has no truth value. It means it's neither true nor false. It's just not pointing to truth. That's how I would approach it. But I wouldn't get up in your head like later, especially, or outside of that practice of saying, oh, well, if a thought comes, it must be exactly the opposite, right? Or something like that. There was like a episode of Seinfeld with George Costanza who said his instincts are so bad that every time he has an idea, it just causes so much problem that he decided if he has an idea, he's going to do the opposite. He's just started doing the opposite of all his ideas, right? So yeah, you can get into that kind of thing too, but I don't recommend it. I wouldn't get too tangled up in like analyzing thoughts or what they mean or how true they are. Rather, just in a practice setting specifically, they just don't have truth value. You don't need to grab onto them. You don't need to do anything with them. You don't need to push them away. Just notice them. And then if you want to, you can inquire, well, okay, if that thought is, who's that thought about? Well, it feels like it's about a me, I think. Where's the me? You kind of look around, it's like, oh, the me could only be another thought. It's like, well, without that, what is there? And that's it. Yeah. Leads you directly to a kind of samadhi. It's from Jennifer. Recently diagnosed with depression I've had since childhood. Spent decades hiding it, using spirituality to bypass. Yeah. Sometimes I feel on edge of insanity. Then I see through the thoughts, then back again. Yeah. It can be quite a ride, eh? And, you're not alone in that. I think the vast majority of people in the world are walking around with some form of that, not even realizing it. This mind virus of thought identification and being used to avoid our own emotional pain and so forth. Yeah. The fact that you know it and you see the mechanism now, that's what's really, really helpful. Stay with the feeling, stay with the emotion, stay with your body, really feel your way through this and do some circling for sure. I don't know if you've done this yet, Jennifer. Do some circling with us somewhere if you can get to it. Chicago 15. Dear Angelo, thank you so much for your guidance at Menla. Words cannot describe the gratitude I feel. Something has totally exploded and the beauty is revealing itself moment after moment. Well, that sounds good. Number 2, everything feels fresh, intimate, and deeply enjoyable. I feel immersed in a world of immeasurable beauty, totally spontaneous, totally at peace, so alive, so fresh. That sounds like an awakening. Wake up at night and insights pour in and guide me to right. Is this just the beginning of endless beginnings? Love, Katya. I love it. I wouldn't conclude anything about it. I would say you're there. That's it. That's awakening, yeah? Yeah, you don't need to do anything. It's your natural state. It is the natural state. If something needs done, it will come up. Otherwise, you're in a good place. I'm really glad to hear it. Thanks for checking in. We did some circling, by the way, for anyone else listening. We did circling, and this was a retreat, like a kind of combined retreat with myself and Chelsea, but meditation, guided meditation talks and stuff. Okay. Oh, I was trying to pronounce this before and I couldn't get it right. It's Old Oregon Nurse. Okay. Practicing 4 and 5 fetter. Watched you work with that young man online about reactivity. What do I do when I'm able to feel the aversion in my body? Do I just stay with it? What then? Just feel the aversion. Yeah. When you're working with Fetter 4 and 5, it's like when you get to the discomfort, the raw discomfort, that's good. That's what you're looking for. And you'll see usually that like you've been avoiding it your whole life without even noticing, right? All the things we do are trying to avoid that feeling of just, it's just like it's like so uncomfortable, right? Yeah. So you stay with it. And assuming you've structured the query in the right way and the statement, then when you're feeling that discomfort, look around and see, is there anything here that's compelling me to react? And by react, I mean anything that the reaction is anything that's taking you out of the sensation. Do you have to do anything about it? That's what you're really looking for. Or just feeling into, do I really have to do anything about this? Yeah? Good. This is from PSP. It feels like my entire life is constant distraction, except for once every couple of months that I dive deep for 5 or 10 hours. But day to day, a distracted life. What's your take? Thanks a lot. I would probably set up a kind of consistent practice of some kind, meditative practice. It's available. The clarity is more available. It's just often we're so busy. We keep ourselves way too damn busy. Right? And if it's there 5 or 10 hours, at a stretch, that's great. So start to really cultivate a practice. And as you cultivate that practice of meditation and just build it up, like I talked to the person earlier, really orient to that practice as the guide itself. Like that, let that practice experience guide you deeper into your experience instead of trying to stand on top of everything with your mind. Let's see here. Josie 2, welcome. Bears Without Ears, what's up, Roshi? Can I move through the world and build my business without the sense of a builder? Oh, totally. If so, how would I strategize for long term? There's no how, you just do it. The strategizing will happen in the moment. Planning happens right now. It's so simple. You don't have to think about how to do it ahead of time. Yeah. I know people who are in business and finance and so forth that are very awake. And they do fine. Let's see. Ball Smasher says, no, dude. Doing the hand stuff is not about right or wrong. The problem is the resistance in facing. Oh my gosh, I got to go down. Is in facing. The next comment says, because I want to be doing no harm anywhere, but the resistance and fear and a huge self in front of me. Yeah, I think you said the resistance I'm facing is, I think, what you meant there. Yeah, I mean, my answer is the same. It's really feel that resistance and feel the fear. I don't know the hand stuff, what you mean by that. I mean, I think I know what you mean by it, but I don't know. That doesn't seem to matter in this question, actually. So, the resistance and fear, stay with that. Just really feel into it. And I know it's intense. Like it is, of course. It is intense. It will calm down with time, but it might get worse before it gets better. Jennifer says, I finally found a trauma therapist who works with somatics. She says she'll go with me where I need to go. We shall see. Oh, awesome. This is from Tomek. Can you speak about relation? People expect me to be someone, but it seems fake. Don't fake it. One moment I cry, next I laugh. Everything flows without continuity. It feels like madness, yet it is true. None to talk to. I love it. Yeah, I think you're in a good place. It's always a little tricky talking to people who are thought identified. I mean, not always, but it can be for sure, right? Especially when you feel the complicity pull, like they want some kind of complicity or something. It's like, yeah, can't do that. Sorry. That's what you're talking about, is the complicity. It's built into so many conversations. Yeah. This is Joseph. Since I've been on this journey, I've noticed more rage come. It scares me. I've lived my life not to hurt anyone's feelings, so I notice this power that wants me to use my voice more, and that's new. It's good. Yeah, if you're used to repressing anger, if you're not used to expressing anger or feeling anger, then your judgment will be a little off about it. Like you'll think just feeling it is like could be dangerous, or it's because you're all the way on the other end of the spectrum of someone who just endlessly loses their temper, and it is kind of either dangerous or just problematic, right? You're not that. You're totally the opposite. So as you start to actually allow that anger through and feeling it, you might be afraid of it. Yeah, and that's okay. Just pay attention to how you're interacting with people. It's okay. Anger is about boundaries. So I would really make a study of structuring boundaries however you want to, through communication. You can read about it, but really make a study of that for yourself. Like, where are you letting your boundaries be blurred? When are you not speaking about the boundaries that are important to you, and so forth. And you'll have to do this, right? Otherwise that anger will keep pushing its way through. Jennifer says, I can relate. I'm realizing all the suppression of sexual energy that's been happening all my entire life. It's so common. It's so common, especially in the United States. I think even more than Europe, for sure, just from the people I've bumped into. But we have a country that grew up with like puritanical morals and all this there's a lot of sexual repression here. This is from Josie. Just joined. Hello, beautiful beings. Love to be with you live, Angelo. Looking forward to what may come. Well, good to hear from you. Thank you. This is from Alex. Do you think that written contact, e.g. email with an awakening facilitator is useful? Yes. Or do you think face-to-face contact or video should be preferred? You can do it through writing for sure. Yeah. Really depends on the process you're working with as well. Like if you're doing Feder work, you can definitely do that through writing. A lot of this is going to depend on how clear the teacher is, of course, or the facilitator. And also their style. There's some facilitators I know who would never do it through writing, and it's just not their style. They prefer video. I can do both. I can do it through writing. I use voice messages a lot. In person's probably overall the best, but I've had many people I've worked with wake up through texting or leaving voice messages and things like that. So, yeah. This is Christina. I second the question. New member. How can I join? How can I move through the world and build my business without the sense of a builder? Yeah. Yeah. One of the most clear and awake people I've ever met. I've actually never met this person that I know of. Is a venture capitalist. So there you go. Yeah. It's doable. Just don't. Really, the answer is, don't worry about the thoughts that say, how am I going to do it? It's just like anything. Even if we take awakening out of it, like you've heard of like analysis paralysis, right? If you're an entrepreneur, it's like you got to take action. You can't just sit and think about it because you'll just talk yourself out of it. It's a similar thing. This is just another version of that, in my opinion. Okay, Ball Spencer says, I'm talking about feeling the pleasure, not the emotions. Okay. Absolute hardcore resistance to it. So you're feeling hardcore resistance to feeling pleasure. Yeah. Pleasure is an emotion, right? Joy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Feel the resistance. I've said this before many times, and I find it to be completely accurate. We don't just repress what we would call negative emotions, like fear, anger, grief. And I don't consider those negative emotions, but that's just the term that is often used. But yeah, or shame and guilt or whatever. Those aren't just the emotions that are repressed with mind identification. We repress everything. We have a very narrow bandwidth of experience. Like our bandwidth of comfort is like this, when our ability to experience is like giant. So if there's something that mind identification or thought identification is doing It's that. It's actually trying to mitigate the intensity of physical experience, and emotion is part of that. So whether it's joy, ecstasy, fear, guilt, all of it, you know. So what I would say is, when you're doing what you're doing, you're not in control of the emotions that are going to come. How about that? So you want pleasure and fear comes, or whatever. That's how emotion is. It just comes. So if resistance comes, feel the resistance. If fear comes, feel the fear. If ecstasy comes, feel the ecstasy. But the resistance is the key to all of this, I think, is kind of central to what you're asking. And resistance is something that feels like part of an emotion. Resistance to joy feels like joy. That's, we get confused, right? Resistance to grief feels like grief. We think that's what grief is. When you really feel grief, it's like, no, it's not a problem. And the resistance can be gone, right? So it's the resistance that really is at the heart of all this stuff about emotion and shadow work and all of it. So why resist, right? You could feel the resistance and ask, like, why am I resisting this? What is at stake? How did I learn to resist? How did I learn to resist this specifically, whatever it is, right? So you can inquire into it, and you can also just feel it. And again, it won't be comfortable. It'll be really uncomfortable. But that's how I generally approach emotion work, is like, go to it, feel it. And try to notice the difference between the feeling and the thoughts. Because it's very common someone will say something like, okay, I can feel in my body that I'm afraid of something. Or let me give you a more clear example. I can, I'm guilty. I'm just making this up. Like, I feel guilty about what I said to my father. I can feel it in my body. And I'll say, like, you can feel I'm guilty because of what I said to my father. You can feel that in your body. That's an interpretation, right? Feel it. Feel what you're feeling. Feel the sensation. Feel the emotion itself. And what happens frequently is we mix the interpretation up with the emotion. When we stop doing that, then we'll feel the resistance, which is intense. Interpretation is trying to take us out of the resistance. It's trying to help us not feel the resistance. And then underneath that, the resistance is trying to help us not feel the emotion. That's kind of the sequence of it that gets deconstructed over time. Yeah. So I think resistance is central to what you're asking, and I would just work with it, sit with it, feel it, and inquire into what the heck it's afraid of, or what it's trying to do, or, you know what I mean? And because if you see those underlying beliefs, then you can start to not feel so much resistance. You will generally not feel so much resistance. You'll feel the emotion more prominently. And as those emotions come forth, just feel the emotion. Yeah. And that will settle so much. Okay, this is from Jay Firebird. It's quiet inside my experience, but I still get a lot of, I'm here now, what? Oh, I'm here, now what? Impulse. I'm on fire with the drive to do something. Can you advise on how to work with this stubborn drive? That is also resistance. Man, it's fascinating how one topic will be pervasive through a certain, group of people or retreat or conversation, but it's also resistance, because you said it's quiet, right? It's quiet inside your experience. But so your mind might be quiet, but this, I'm on fire with the drive to do something, that's, your body's not quiet, right? That's a strong feeling. So that's the feeling of rising up, energetic restlessness. Yeah. Which is very closely tied with resistance. In most ways, they are the same thing. So yeah, similar to what I've been saying, just feel that resistance. See what it's rooted in. Feel how old it is. Notice the associated beliefs. See what happens if you ask, what if I stop resisting? What would be the cost? Or what is this resistance doing for me? What has it been doing for me? You can ask some of these questions while you're staying with the actual experience of it. But staying with the experience is primary. All right. Fred says, Angelo, could you clarify that even the words you are speaking come without an author? Yeah. So basically your entire enterprise of teaching is just more spontaneous appearance. Yes. Yes, that's exactly it. Is there an intention? I mean, I can backward extrapolate and put an intention on it, but in this moment, it doesn't feel like any intention. It just feels like whatever's happening. Yeah. Feels like sounds coming out, colors, movement, sensations. It's pretty much how it feels. Yeah, good question. Geraldo Mondo. In the last months, I started to be within equanimity territory, but sometimes I have a sensual, thrill-seeking drive, and a part of me wants to be a bad boy after a lifetime of being a good one. Maybe you have to. I don't know. So I will say this. There often are stages of our experience as the unbinding from false identity occurs. There are stages of experience where the layers of the identity we've been carrying as a very fundamental identity kind of fall away, and we almost, I don't know if we have to, but we often do, almost like overcompensate in the other direction for a little bit. I mean, not going crazy, of course, but yeah, we often find ourselves like, it's like learning to ride a bike. You kind of overcorrect and stuff. And it's not uncommon that you find underneath it, like you actually do have drives that aren't such a good boy drive or whatever it is, right? And, you know, you have to explore that to some degree and see what it's about, how it feels, what's underneath it. Maybe you've been limiting yourself in some way that's unnecessary, and you can stop doing that, right? Maybe not. So it really depends what's under there and what it is. But I'm not someone who advocates for like being a renunciate and celibate and all that stuff. I think there's far more harm done than good with that kind of thing. So yeah, it really depends on the specifics, but you may explore the other side of things a bit. It's okay. Ashley says, the worst pain I ever had was a low pressure headache after a spinal tap that diagnosed my rare disease. High pressure headaches made me cry, but the low pressure headache, oh my God, that was painful. Oh, I can imagine. When I was the most sick, I would just sit and the tears would come whether I wanted them or not. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Bears Without Ears, it says, can you please talk about pre-verbal thoughts? During meditation, it happens to me to sense some of undercurrent, but not being able to fully verbalize it. I would give you a very simple way to approach that. In that space, you can even do it as a sort of round of meditation, right? Just ask yourself what belief is hiding in the background. Excuse me. Yeah, just ask yourself what belief is hiding in the background. And feel into it. It can be subtle for sure and like a bit slippery. So it's nice to do it in a meditative environment. In your case, yeah. Good question. This is from KevBot. Is the process of rectifying emotional issues really just about sitting with the difficult emotion and feeling it for as long as it takes until it's no longer a problem? Is it really that simple? It can be. It can be that simple. There are things that can make it more efficient, specifically circling in the style that we do. So I call it deep shadow process just to differentiate it from other types of circling, just because it is what it is. But yeah, there are more aspects to that. It's a relational field. There are some techniques and so forth, but the majority of it is just sitting with the feeling. And even that, just to be able to do that takes a long time usually before you, I don't know what to say, it takes a long time. It takes some insight, because I've had people say, I thought I was feeling for so long. I thought I was doing this emotion work, and I realized I wasn't actually feeling the emotion. I was thinking about it. I was telling myself I was feeling it. I was asking myself, how long do I have to feel it? Like, you can just have thought after thought after thought and not really be in there, you know? So yeah, once you can actually do it, it really becomes that simple largely, with some caveats. Nomi says, what would you say is the most simple way of saying what awakening is? A shift in identity, a change, seeing through the illusion of what you take yourself to be. Yeah, that's probably the simplest. There is the embodiment of freedom for up to an hour a day. The rest, cast out of paradise and back to suffering. Does it still happen? And what is the worst that could happen if freedom abides? Oh, why does it still happen? Sorry. Well, I don't know why specifically. It's well, I do know, but in your case, like, you have to sort that out. But the reason is dissociation. Believing that there's something to be gained from all those thoughts and going back to them and grabbing onto them. That's what happens. What is the worst that could happen if freedom abides? I would ask, what's the best that can happen if freedom abides? Yeah? So it's your birthright. It's possible for you. It's available. Ball Smasher says, all right, realize the self-reflective thought is not me. Noted. The feeling, though, feels so real. I mean, it is. Yeah, it's very physical. It's physically very real. It's intense. Yeah. I mean, it exists physically, not me though, but perception it's real. Yeah, I get it. And actually, once you're feeling it, once you're feeling that intensity, then even what does real mean? Real or unreal? Those are thoughts, right? You don't need to analyze anything once you're feeling it. So yeah, in the body sense, it's like we're beyond categories of real, unreal, body, no body. These are just designations of the mind. It's just what it is, right? And it's intense at first. This one's from Wingtag. Hello, everyone. Good to be here. My question, do thoughts arise on their own, or am I somehow adding to them? I think you can stir up thoughts easily by reacting to thoughts without realizing it. But they will just kind of appear on their own, of course, as well. I'm not clear on the adding, and what does don't move your mind mean? Don't move your mind is when you notice a thought, and then you kind of look and see, like, okay, is that thought about someone? Right? What happens when you look? If you don't start thinking about that, if you don't analyze the answer, then your mind will stop. Right? That's pretty much it. It's as simple as that. Notice the thought. This is a lot about how Ramana taught it, actually. Notice the thought. He said it like, ask for whom did this thought arise, or something like that. But I would just say, look and see, is that thought about someone? And when I say look and see, I do not mean look into another thought. I don't mean think about that. I mean just look. That's what it means to not move your mind. You can get real quiet real fast. Good question. Ashley says, I've had my emotions become more prominent and definitely unavoidable. Certain emotions. I used to resist a lot. Now there's no resistance. Beautiful. Alex says, do you think I can find fulfillment without a romantic relationship? It's possible. But if it's an endless distraction for you, you may have to have a relationship to realize that it's not going to make you feel completely at peace. Right? Or is it more of an excuse some spiritual singles used to pretend they don't need a partner to be happy? I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, everybody has different motivations and ways of communicating and different levels of sincerity. Who knows what any given individual means or says about it. Yeah. But I guess the question is more, you're kind of asking it in almost like a theoretical way. I would look at your situation, right? Like, am I suppressing the tendency to have a romantic relationship to wake up or something? And in that case, I would say you don't need to do that. If you just happen to be single and that's how you live your life mostly, then that's fine. Right? Now, if you're obsessed with it and you're trying to like give attention to spirituality or awakening and you're just endlessly directed toward or oriented toward a relationship, maybe you need to try it out, but I can't answer those questions for you. Only you can. So it kind of depends on where you're coming from. But the answer is simply yes, of course. You can be free without a relationship, without a romantic connection at any given time. Ashley said, my travel days are always very long. The one year I left my house at like 2 a.m. and didn't make it to the hotel in North Carolina until 8 p.m. their time. Worth it though. Lisa says, hi, Angelo. Love you so much as always. Love you too. I was with Lisa at the previous, the retreat 2 weeks ago. Yeah, Menla. Always a lovely being to be around. Swarananda says, devotion and spiritual objectification are two different things. Yeah, I would agree with that. Jay Firebird says, sure feels like there is an I in here, a sense of I that I can rest in. That's a thought. Arg. Exactly. Dude, LOL. Much gratitude. You just answered your own question. That's exactly it, right? If you're like, there's an I that I can rest in, and you just rest. Where's the I? If you're truly resting, then you're probably not thinking about I. Yeah. It's funny. The self structure, the me, the I, whatever you want to call it, it's so tenacious, and yet it's so obvious that it's so easy to find that it's not there. It doesn't take long to figure out, like, you're not going to find it. And it doesn't mean you should stop looking. Like, it can be helpful to keep looking, keep orienting back to that. Well, who's that thought about? Just you're there, but there's no I thought, right? If there's an I thought, that's a thought. Anyway, yeah. But again, it's not obvious till it's obvious. Perryman says, meeting people who can teach from this place is powerful. A message in my high school yearbook didn't hit me until reading it this year, though it hits fully clear their aliveness 22 years later. That's cool. What a cool story. Yeah, you find it all over the place. You find awake people in some of the strangest places, and you find pointings that are really profound in some strange places too, even that aren't by awake people. Musicians are really good at this. Poets are really good at this. Sometimes bringing forth something, and you're like, there's a few lines in a song, and you're like, do they know what that really says? It's fascinating. Yeah. This is from Lauren. Hi, Angelo. What role does sila or precepts in Buddhism play in awakening? Very interesting question. It's been in the space recently. I have some friends that are taking Jukai precepts with another friend. So this may not be a satisfying answer but it's my honest answer. It really depends on you. So I really like to tell people, like, how to wake up. You know what you need. And part of your waking up path may be to take the precepts and to study the precepts and to feel into the precepts and to write about, that may be part of your path, and it may be hugely important for you. Or it definitely doesn't have to be. The vast majority of people I know who've woken up haven't done anything with, they don't even know what they are. Maybe never even heard of them. And other people I know have found them to be very valuable. So they're not necessary to wake up for sure, but I know what they are. And if you approach them I would approach them more as koans. And that's how it's usually done with Jukai, I think. That's how I would recommend it if you resonate with them. But if it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I almost asked, like, why are you asking my advice? If they're important to you, do it. If they're not, don't worry about it. But if they feel like a burden to you, like if it feels like something that's distracting, trying to hold yourself to some high standard and it's just putting you in your head, then you don't need them. Yeah. Okay. Good question. Timely. This is from 546. Love this live chat. Sometimes I have thoughts that are so quick and induce an almost immediate physical response, like me blurting out something in response. How can I be more aware to avoid this? Well, I wouldn't necessarily avoid. Don't add avoidance to anything in thought, because that stirs the pot just as much. It's more just becoming genuinely curious about thought. slowing down, noticing this thought. Again, now who's that about? Can I find the one that thought is about? Or even, can I find the one reacting to that thought? In the space of the thought, right? In the space in which that thought seems to be appearing. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating endeavor. Yep. And like anything, practice helps. Pamela says, my heart and gut still seem like sneaky centers of gravity that may lighten sometimes, but are always waiting for more attention, no matter how much attention I give them. You got to keep at it. The sense of almost like personifying them as something that needs attention. There's still I sense there's still like a layer of thought that's going on there. Because when attention's really down fully in the energetic space we call the gut or the belly or the whatever, the hara, it's so enjoyable, it's so empty, so unlocatable. That the concern of how long doesn't come up. Almost as if like the thought would say like, how long do I stay here until the next thing happens? Well, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? There's no next thing. You have, 5 streams of pure sense experience and consciousness. That's it. So attention will be in one of them. At any given time, you could say. And or other times it may be totally synesthetic. And the sense of a center also is a thought, for sure. In this space, right? We're talking about the sense of there being a center. It can be a really interesting contemplation. Because if you notice the sensation field and then the center, notice the center. What is that made out of? Is it a visual thing in your mind? Like, close your eyes. Is there a center there? If there is, are you envisioning something? Like a vague visual experience? Or is it literally just the label center? And seeing those are thoughts. The sensations. Whew. It's so vast and so intimate. I would stay there the rest of my life if I didn't have to eat. Kind of a joke, but kind of not. Yeah, that's the thing right there. I keep waiting for them to open any advice. Well, and one way I could say, like, they will open on their own, but yeah, it's just seeing that even that intention is like, why do they need to open? Like, why do they need to do anything other than they're doing? Yeah. Why does that sensation field need to be any other than it is? Well, it doesn't. So if there's a thought that says that, that's okay. And it's a thought. And then back to the sensation. In fact, you can use those questions, like those thoughts that come up, like, when is this going to open? That doesn't have to be a problem. Use that as the catalyst to drop in and see, like, does that thought even apply here? Is this open or closed? Is this near or far? Does this have a center or is it centerless? And you see, like, it doesn't respond to any of that because it's just what it is. It doesn't have a response to that. It doesn't have a way of being because its way of being is so clear. And so the words just are nonsense, but I could say grounded, maybe. Yeah. I think you're really, just after the conversation we had the other day too, I think you're really dialing into this and there's just still some resistance. A little bit of resistance, a little bit of getting caught in thoughts or analysis of like the next thing that's going to happen. When's it going to do this? When's it going to do that? These are just like subtle ripples. Yeah. I think you're in there largely, but you can get more settled and more established there, I think. Yeah, thank you. Your questions are so deep that it takes me some depth to get to the intuition of what's happening there. Okay, which is really enjoyable. Let's see. DK Dude Man. I just realized that this year it's been really subtle pieces of resistance that have sort of just quietly disappeared. Lately, so much gratitude and love is felt for everyone who's helped me with this. Oh, that's really sweet. Beautiful. Seth for Life says, hello, Angelo. Why is further on the path the mind filter of boredom so prominent? I know it's a filter, but a persistent one. I don't know. I don't experience boredom, and I don't even really remember what it was. But I remember thinking I was bored at some point in my life when I was mostly like a lot younger. But what I suspect it is a kind of restlessness parading as, I don't even know what boredom is, but I think it's restlessness. I think underneath it, there's restlessness. Yeah. Sit with so what I would do is physically sit with the boredom and don't think about it at all. Really check in with what your body's doing when you're feeling boredom. It's a fascinating one to me, actually. There's something under there. I know this from working with people with boredom. It's often surprising what's underneath it. And it's an emotion of some kind, and it could be a different emotion for different people. But there's a resistance to the emotion, and it's calling itself boredom. So I would just physically stop what you're doing when you feel the boredom. Be like, cool, boredom's here. Let's see what's underneath it. When I don't chase the arrow of boredom into a distraction. That's what I recommend. Oh, Kimura. I love Kimura. Okay. This is John Colley. Angelo, I've been feeling strong resistance. I don't know if it's to a thought or an emotion, really. Maybe both. Sometimes I listen to a video on your consciousness playlist and the confusion evaporates. The unbound consciousness practices are really good for settling the mind, right? Yeah. I notice a strong resistance to fear and also repetitive thoughts. There's a strong urge to distract when I feel disconnected resistance. So what I wanted to say is that, yeah, the practice of unbound consciousness can be really, really settling to the mind. And it's great. But there's a but to that. There's a caveat to that is situational. If you end up suddenly in a much more busy environment where you're not able to meditate and stuff, then the resistance often just comes right back. Or maybe not as intensely, but something will be there. And so I think both are helpful. Doing that practice of unbound consciousness, and then also quite the opposite, going directly down into the sensations and the resistance to them. Using both of those approaches can be really helpful. So back to your question, I notice a strong resistance to fear and also repetitive thoughts. There's a strong urge to distract when I feel the disconnected resistance. Yeah. I get you. My answer to you is going to be very similar to what I've been saying to others. This topic is fascinating. That's coming up like in spades, the resistance topic. Yeah. You said disconnected, and that's sticking out to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know your situation, but through trauma, through the way we were brought up, through our past and history, we can develop a fear of feeling disconnected or isolated that parades as other things. Yeah. But more importantly than that, what then happens is we start to embody it in that we feel disconnected from ourself, from our own physical experience. Like what I was just talking to Pamela about, the sensations. If you can drop into those sensations, you won't feel separate. You won't feel isolated. You won't feel disconnected. You can really inhabit that sense, that non-dualistic mountain of emptiness sense of, it's very peaceful. You won't feel disconnected, but again, through the way we've mapped our experience in regard to isolation and so forth, we may have learned to do it to ourselves all the time. And the only way you can really feel isolated is through dissociation, right? So it's a little bit superficial to say that the thoughts about disconnection are the only thing that's uncomfortable. It's not quite like that, but it's the habituated thought process that keeps us feeling disconnected. That is the disconnection itself. But if we use distraction to keep, it's like the thought process keeps chasing its tail then, right? So the only ultimate answer is getting back down into the body. That's the ultimate result that will work. How you do it? Well, you can do it through practices like I've been talking about. You can do some kind of deep shadow process through circling or whatever. Other somatic processes, other types of therapies. But ultimately, you're going to have to get back down in there. And that's what will finally settle the feeling of being disconnected. Jennifer says, I've also been diagnosed with 2 mental health issues recently. Doubt thoughts like to say, awakening caused this, but I know they've been here most of my life. I'm mindful about bypassing lots of fear. Yeah. That is a thing. Like, and it's why I put so many kind of warnings and caveats in my book about awakening and kind of explain that my whole first chapter pretty much is cautions. But I do make the point in the book, and I find it to be the case, is awakening doesn't add something to you. It doesn't add resistance patterns. It doesn't add repressed emotion. It doesn't add, it uncovers things is what it does. And when it does it too fast, it can be scary, right? It can be destabilizing in some way and whatever, but that's what it does. But how are you ever really going to address that stuff if you don't even know it's there? So in a sense, that's why it's great to have the shift. And then the shadow work comes. Like I always say, it can be surprising how much is there, but now you're aware of it, which is great, you know? Yeah. Gentle Eventful says, thank you. I'm very grateful. You're welcome. Seth M., thank you for the donation. That's very nice. Is it true that everything cannot be expressed by the senses does not exist? Oh, I'm sorry. Is it true that everything that cannot be expressed by the senses does not exist? What about atoms? Expressed by the senses. Cannot be expressed by this. Does not exist. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can get into like physics if you want and talk about atoms. So what is an electron? An electron is an excitation in the electron field. When you talk about quantum field theory, which apparently is a branch of physics that is the most elegant and least and has never been disputed. An electron is an excitation in an electron field. There's no actual electron. It's true of everything, right? It's true of all particles. So there you go. So when we talk about existence, we're talking almost scientifically now, right? Existence or non-existence. Yeah. But what's so beautiful is through awakening, you can realize formlessness directly. You can directly realize formlessness. So an atom to you is a thought. Have you ever seen an atom? Right. See how that works? So that's why I don't talk in scientific terms, because it just puts people in their head. I'd rather say, hey, go find out yourself. And with formless non-dual realization, or seventh fetter being seen through, it's obvious, actually. Quantum field theory is directly observable. It's not you can't observe it because there's no point of observation at that point, but it's directly experienceable. It's really cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Perryman says, thoughts feel more noticed, like a signpost, and feels easier to see when a signpost points toward or away the central attractor, and life and creativity flourishes amazingly from here. That's beautiful. Red says, many thoughts cause suffering. I can tell myself not to believe the thoughts, and this helps, but the feeling persists, at least for a time. Should I lean into the suffering? Is this shadow work? Yes, I think so. Yeah, I do think so. Because it's not thoughts that cause suffering. It's the reaction to thoughts. The reaction to thoughts, and the reaction to thoughts being structured through a sense of a separate self that's always going to feel not good enough and not okay and small and separate, right? So there's a more fundamental thing going on than just thoughts. It's identity structure, yeah? So the becoming aware of thoughts and all that, that's helpful for a time, and it can even lead to a first awakening. But at some point, it has to be shadow work as well. Yeah. Mountains and Fog says, nowadays, oh, thank you for the donation. Mountains and Fog says, nowadays, my anger pretends to be an intuition, but I find it tough not to be bossed around by it, as it threatens me with calamity if I do something wrong, all driven by doubts. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I feel you. More practice, more. I think more sitting would be helpful as well. That's the theme of today, is like a little bit more sitting, establish a practice, and resistance, investigating it directly, and seeing that this all can be very simple. Ashley said, when I first started meditating practice, I started with 10 minutes. Now I meditate whenever it feels right in the moment. Yeah, and that's great. Ashley has a lot of clarity and has had a lot of shifts and insight. Just depends on the person. For some people, though, I just feel like, yeah, I think building a practice that's structured and stuff can be really helpful. I've done it, and I've had to do it myself several times in my life, where I had to build a practice and really structure it, especially when I was very busy. All right. Getting down to the bottom. Okay, this is good. Jay says, when I practice what's here without thought, I always seem to land on a sense of self. When you say sense of self, what is that? Like, look at what that is. How do you know there's a sense of self there? Is that not a thought? And then when you see that thought, there's a sense of self here. I've landed on a sense of self. Because you can't know that without thinking, right? When you're there and it says, oh, I've landed on a sense of self, go, oh, okay. Who's that thought about? Yeah? See how that works? Paul says, more triggers. I overlooked the presence is already here. Exactly. It comes in many forms. It seems like me is melting into presence. Is that possible? Of course. Oh, Costanza in the left-hand path. Yeah, that's right. Love it. That's the Seinfeld episode I was talking about earlier. Jennifer said, thank you, Angela. I joined Rick's online circles, but never did any work in person myself. Yeah, doing it in person is really, really the way to do it. Rhoda said, all the clarity awoke within me that what I was looking for wasn't where I was looking, because it doesn't exist in duality. That's right. Then had all this beautiful clarity for about a month. Now it seems like the thought, I don't need practice to know what I am, has gotten, oh, I lost you. Gotten way frustrated. Any guidance? Has gotten in the way. Frustrated. I don't need to practice to know what I am. Yeah, I would just sit there with that thought. I don't need to practice to know what I am. And then look and see, is there someone that thought is about? Because you can have a reaction to that thought, or you can actually use that thought as a catalyst. Everything is a catalyst after awakening, right? That thought can be a total catalyst. I don't need to practice to know what I am. I don't need to practice to know what I am. That's not the thought that's bothering you. It's the next thought that says, damn it, that thought came again. It's a problem. So then that's the next thought. That thought came again and it's a problem. Who's that thought about? Can I find it? Yeah. Cool. Okay, y'all. We're at 2 hours. Wow, how did it go that long? I didn't even notice, but I didn't answer everyone's question, which I usually do get to the bottom of all these questions. Hi, Angelo. I've been practicing shadow work for the past months. I can stay with the emotions most of the time, but the family situations, I feel that if I stand up for myself, chaos will happen. Sometimes you need a little chaos. I don't know. I can't tell you what your threshold is for that. But I would say this: don't not be yourself because of a fear of the reaction that could happen if you are yourself. And let the cards fall where they may. Dave and Elaine, you guys are so sweet. Autumn says, are thoughts ever intuition or insight? Sure. There have been multiple times when I had this sensation of what my brain said is terror, fear, and later I found out someone close passed away. So in that case, that's not the thought. It's the sensation in your body, right? That's resonating with something that seems to be happening at a distance, but it's not because there's no distance. So that's intuition. But what I used to think thoughts were telling me or delivering, it was the intuition that was delivering it. It was just being filtered through the mind. I don't know if that's helpful, but yeah, you have good intuition. Obviously, that's cool. Susan says, loved seeing you and Lisa at the I Am conference. You both embody divine masculine and divine feminine together. Yeah, I really like working with Lisa. She's just a gem. Yeah, Infinite Nothing says, seeing the non-duality pointers in music and art. I totally agree. In fact, it's almost like if music and art has those kind of pointers that just resonate, then it's so much more enjoyable. And if they don't, sometimes it feels flat to me, actually. Yep, the noticing is everywhere. I might be able to make it to the bottom of these. Let me see here. Falling into a coma while practicing what is being resisted may not be resisting anything. You may just be really tired. But if you're really just falling asleep, totally asleep, sometimes you'll be in pure presence and it feels like a thought might come and says, "Am I asleep?" But you're not, right? That can happen. But if you're truly just crashing out, falling asleep every time, maybe you're sleep deprived. Maybe you can change the time of day you're practicing and sitting. That can be helpful. Change posture, sit in a brighter room, sit upright. Those kinds of things can be helpful. And it usually passes. Let's see. Somewhere along the line, I got to the sense that there's nothing wrong with me or anybody else for that matter. A thought or feeling or physical pain may come up that I don't like, and there's the sense. Well, what's wrong with that? Life feels much less burdensome. This all began with some kind of opening at the May retreat, also online circling since January. Very cool. Love that. That sounds like equanimity to me. It's a good thing. Realizing Bob says, practice has ended, reactivity dying down. I really feel what it means that thoughts aren't real. But it goes well beyond that. Nothing that happened is happening. And that is terrifying to me. Oh, terrifying. Well, the fear can come for sure, right? Again, fear is that barrier emotion or the gateway emotion to the mysterious. There's nothing more mysterious than formless non-duality. Maybe no self-realization. I don't know. It's rather mysterious, but you'll get used to it and you'll start to really enjoy it. I would focus on the intimate aspect of it. That, yeah, there's nothing happening, nothing here, no inside world, no outside world. And yet feel the body sense. Feel how intensely wonderful that is. Feel how deep and profound and nuanced that sensation is, even though it has no particular essence to it. Can't deny that it's felt, the felt sense. Yeah. That's what's going to stabilize you a lot into a place of deep enjoyment. This is from BKNY. Feel like I had some kind of Satori or awakening in 2023. Baseline now is quieter, less thought, but still feel suffering. More like a thinning self versus change of identity. What practice should I do now? Well, I would say I would do whatever kind of practice you want to do, whatever kind of meditation you want to do, or feels resonant with you. But I would find a way to do deep shadow work. InsideCircle.org, circling with us. That kind of thing is really good. Anything else that comes to you, any kind of somatic process, but I would find some way to do the deep shadow stuff because it'll just make everything much more efficient. Otherwise, it can kind of stagnate for quite a while. Yeah, because that stuff can be slippery. It can hide really well. But yeah, if I were to suggest practices, I would practice anything in my non-duality playlist with the sense fields as a practice. Find one that works for you and then use it as a practice. And then sometimes practicing unbound consciousness, which is the consciousness playlist. Both of those can be really helpful. Has it ever not been now said, this is like watching an episode of Cops. Stop resisting. Realizing Bob said, I really feel in a tangible way as this slowly realizes itself, everything isn't here. The story, not here. The identity, not here. But it's not just that. The whole waking up that isn't and couldn't. Yeah, I know. Couldn't also exist. Wish there was a way sometimes to clarify non-dual the way Kensho just snapped. To be honest, I feel terror about all of this. But even that is like, it's not actually really there. Yeah. Yeah. The terror is interesting. Two things for you. I would suggest some kind of shadow work if you can get to it. Because sometimes this isn't all about just the total formlessness and absolute mystery of reality and direct experience. It's also about some perception you had since you were a child. Something that happened as a kid that triggered a feeling of a fear of not being or something like that, right? Or anything. So I've often seen people in deeper realization or even beyond no self-realization have significant breakthroughs with circling in a very short time because there's no filters left. So it's easy to get to stuff, which is great. But again, you can also overlook it for a long time. Thank you, Rhoda, for the $5. I haven't received a link to the Facebook group for December's retreat. Can't remember how I got it last year. Can you please advise? Check your spam folder because she did send that out to everyone a while back. Yeah. Or if someone wants to post it here. I can't believe it's been 2 hours either. Yeah. Jay Firebird says, dude, I don't know how I didn't recognize that as a thought. I know, right? Isn't that fun when you do? All right. Thank you all. Yeah, that was a great one. What can be practiced for freedom to abide more than just a fraction of a day? Oh, attention in any of the sense fields or rotating through the sense fields. Sensation in the felt, just the felt. Just what's felt right now. Practice along with me. Just what's seen. Just the scene. Colors, forms, shapes. Just the heard. Sound. Just the felt. You don't have to do it that fast. You can do it at whatever speed you want, but that's a good practice. You can do it anytime, all day long. This is Eveluna. Hi, I've been staying very quiet lately. A lot of things going on in my relative life. Still processing. Questions will arise when it's time. Much love. Okay, good to hear from you. Have you ever met anyone who got out of the matrix and then wanted to go back in? Yes, a couple. But they usually delude themselves and they don't even know that's what they're doing. It's not very common, but on occasion. That's why I say don't fight this, but you'll see people out there to do it. You know, I don't know why. There's some people just really insist, like, no, I just want to be back in my thoughts. I just want the life that I used to think was real to be real in some way. Like, it's almost like saying, I just want to believe Santa Claus is real, even though I don't. right? It doesn't even make sense, but yet sometimes people will do that. What is Lisa's YouTube? Lisa, just look up Lisa Cans is how she says it. It looks like Carnes to me. Cairns. Lisa Carnes. Maybe if you put Lisa Carnes non-duality. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, y'all. Much love. See you soon.